Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for coming to Political Science Student Association's weekly CrossRoad meetings. Today we are having a bit of a special CrossRoads, and so there's a little procedure and run through about how today's meeting is going to work. But in a couple of seconds, I'm just going to let Commie give his introductions as well. And we're going to, the officer team and I are going to demonstrate how today's meeting is going to work. It's going to be the same as normal CrossRoads, but give you more of a format to work in groups with other students that share similar opinions. And yeah, we're just trying to see at the end of the day if we as young Americans can just find common ground. So, Dr. Diwali.
For those of you who didn't realize that something was going on here, we meet here every Wednesday at noon, and you are all welcome to attend and participate. This is open to anybody. In a few minutes, an attendance sheet will go around, whether you were here for this or not. If you sign the attendance sheet, we will document that you were here. If you put a faculty member name next to your name, we will contact that faculty member and let them know that you were here. And so we can't guarantee you're going to get any kind of credit out of it, but we will document your presence here if that helps at all. So that'll be going around in just a few minutes.
Okay, so Dr. Cavalli, if y'all haven't met him yet, is our faculty advisor, and today he will be our moderator for the debate portion. So essentially, he's going to be making a statement. This is not his personal beliefs or opinions, anybody, just to make that clear. He'll be making a statement that's either going to fall under the category of liberal, moderate, or conservative. For the sake of this demonstration, it will be simple, but hopefully you guys can get the idea. So if you wanted to read the demonstration statement, Dr. Cavalli, it should be on the back.
Okay, the demonstration statement is, I like dogs more than cats.
All right, so then all the agreeers, so if you agree with the statement, I like dogs more than cats, you'll come together, you'll discuss with each other for the next 5 to 8 minutes as to why you agree that dogs are better than cats. And at the end of that 5 to 8 minutes, you will be at the opportunity to be a spokesman for your team and say why you guys agree as a team as to why dogs are better than cats. At the same time, the disagreeers will be getting together and talking about as why they think cats are better than dogs. And so they'll have each 1 minute to state their case, why dogs are better, why cats are better, then sit down, and it'll open up the discussion for everybody else on the floor. So does that make any sense? Are there any questions moving forward before we get started? Is everything clear? Okay. So Dr. Cavalli, if you want to start with the statements, we can go ahead and get into it.
Which statements?
So
on the back?
Yes, sir. So you could read any of the three right there in any order you want to. Then we'll break into groups of agreeers, disagreeers, and after 5 minutes, we'll come back together. You'll assemble everybody, and we'll have to share our statements, and then we talk together and try to find middle ground.
Okay, so
yeah, do you want to try the practice one first, everybody, to get a feel for it?
Like cats versus dogs? All right.
Okay, so Dr. Cavalli, could you read it again? I'm sorry.
The demonstration statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the demonstration statement is, I like dogs more than cats.
Okay.
So then we're standing up, right?
Yeah, so
we'll just stand up. We'll consolidate in your group of
So if you agree with the statement as is, I like dogs with cats, you can move towards this side of the room. If you disagree, or if you like cats more, you can stay exactly where you are and people will come conglomerate over here.
So if you like
dogs, come over here. If you like cats, go over there. Okay. Why do you guys think like dogs? Or why do you like dogs? Why do you agree with the statement as is? You can do more with dogs. Okay.
They're the companion of mankind.
The companion cats. I like them because I think that they're more loyal than cats. My cat will betray me, my dog will. Exactly. So you see how we are all saying why we think we agree that dogs are better than cats. So now we have to all come together and decide on who's going to be our team's spokesman for this round, right?
So cats are better than dogs.
I was hoping the student would want to nominate
Like
himself.
dogs are cool and all.
So, you want to be our spokesman?
Like a higher level.
Okay,
Like
let's turn this one in. Alright. Okay, Tyler, you're going to be our spokesman for this round, alright?
They're more
So, the job is to put this to your team and to figure out why we all agree
they're
as
like
to
a-
why
They're very
so you got your reasons.
Right?
Yeah, man's best friend.
It's funny because I think dogs are actually
Okay, alright,
violent.
so then after this segment,
Yeah,
Clifford,
cats
Molly's going to get us all
Yeah.
together.
They better than
And
you.
you are going to go against their spokesman, and you both will have 1 minute to just share exactly what we discussed in this group. Then we'll sit back down, and then we can try to find middle ground with the other people.
Can we add like a couple pieces?
Yeah. This is our first time doing it. We can do whatever we want. Yeah. Yeah, dogs don't like Well, that's something that'll probably happen in like the open discussion. So these statements are supposed to be like strong opinions so that we can find middle ground at the end of the day. If it was as easy as do I like dogs or cats more, it's kind of like a why would you argue that it's just an opinion. It's more of how we're trying to figure out if we can find something we agree on. Right now, they're arbitrary.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't like
There's that
word.
bond similarity.
So,
But yeah, so Tyler, I think that you don't poop in the house. What else do you say? The man.
They do a lot, we do a lot with them more.
Yes.
You can have all.
less.
I'm allergic to cats, so please let them know that I don't like cats. I'm allergic to them.
We can try it. They're gonna try to find that. Less mandatory.
Oh, yes, that would work.
They have a higher level of consciousness than cats and dogs. Dogs are like yeah, you like to earn.
Stray cats are a plague on society. They got
Stray cats are a plague. Isn't there a whole cat island in Greece?
They're
They're everywhere now. They keep spreading. Okay, so I think that we have our ideas. So once we have come to like a wrapping point, we can tell Cavalli that we're ready, and then he's the moderator, so he gets to decide when they have to wrap up, and we'll get to say our spokesman will get to speak first. Does that make sense, guys? Still trying to. Okay. I know it just sounded like a bunch of words at first. Alright, our team is ready. So yeah, we definitely need to figure
We're
out
not gonna do it at every little bit.
time limits are gonna work and everything. If you guys have decided on who your spokesman is, we've decided on ours, and we'd love to get this round started.
All right. Okay.
You got it, Todd. I believe in you.
That's good. Alright, so I guess we were agreeers, right?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Cavalli, if you could just read the statement for us, we'll have the agreeers say why they agree, and then the disagreeers say why they disagree.
Yeah, the demonstration statement is, I like dogs more than cats.
We decided that we like dogs more than cats because, first of all, you can do they're a man's best friend. You know, everyone knows it. They're the most loyal animals that we have. You can train them to do a lot more things, have a lot more different personalities, right? Variability. Cats are a scourge of disease and plague. You know, they carry Toxoplasma gondii, a mind-altering parasite. Don't want that. Bad. They shit outside, right? Okay. Unlike cats, they gotta have the litter box in there. Disgusting, gross, bad. Dogs know that they're pets. You know. What was the fifth reason? Was there a fifth reason, or did I get it right?
They do a lot more. They're more loyal.
I think I technically rolled that point into the first one.
Yeah, and your minute's just about up now, so now you have a minute to explain why you guys disagree.
All right. So cats represent a higher form of consciousness than pets. All right. Dogs, they're loyal by default. They're domesticated to be that way. Cats, you have to actually earn their loyalty, their trust, their respect. All right. This is the point. So having like a dog sit on your lap is expected. When a cat sits on your lap, it feels way better. Just like, oh, he actually trusts me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So and additionally, cats, they don't bark super loudly in like apartments and stuff. So if you have like a living situation where you can't have like an animal that's very loud, cats are pretty good for that. You know, meows only get so loud, typically. There may be some fringe cases, but additionally, cats, they groom themselves. They're very independent, as opposed to dogs, which require a lot more attention, a lot more like activity to keep them happy. Whereas cats, you can just like play around like a little thing and then it's done.
All right, now your minute's up. So this would be the point in the conversation where anybody who either doesn't agree or disagree with the statement as is, or wants to share their own opinion based off of what the other stance has said, this is the open discussion. This is your normal Crossroads. This has never changed, and it'll stay the same. And so that's how the event's gonna work today, the special Crossroads. We have 3 statements, and looks like we're still good on time. So if y'all wanna actually get started, I think y'all did a fantastic job, and that's how today's is gonna work. Is that okay with you, Cavalli?
So far, yes.
All right, so you can sit back down, and round 1 will begin in just a second.
Cats one.
Yeah.
Cats is better. Sorry.
So we just go to the next statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next statement is a liberal statement, and the liberal statement is Project 2025 is the current greatest threat to democracy in America.
So if you agree this side, again, disagreeers on that side.
Yeah, I think we can just go ahead and start
Yes,
talking
that kind of
about
side.
the biggest thing, right, 2025, is like different departments like State Department, DOJ, and all that stuff. It's not consolidated under the presidency. So the president has
So the reason I made this part of their statements is because in all the
So basically, typically, right, like,
very
we have
strong
like all of our
opinions.
bureaucracy.
And so it's like most people aren't going to disagree or disagree. There's going to be gray area, and that's what the open discussions are for. So we can like have conversations about that.
This would
gray
allow
area.
the
But
president
right now we
to
have to
specifically
decide
fire
our
every single
argument.
person
I just don't want to
and
be
replace
against
them
my
with
group.
whoever they
It's
want.
like I have to.
So, like, you know, let's just say, yeah.
So I don't want to be
Let's say you don't believe in
obstructed,
climate
but
change. Let's
if
go
either
to
you two want to be, or
you're fired.
try it.
Well, I found a climate denier.
General idea of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you,
I'm not.
So DOJ specifically is much like the dangerous one because
see, so there's not
they have complete control of DOJ and there's a probe done into the administration itself to be set aside. And then they can also target certain people and freedom, which is exactly what the Biden administration is doing right now.
Yeah, it's a complete breakdown of the system of checks and balances. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the state of the government, but this is only going to further harm it, further compromise.
Yeah, they're very open about the fact that it's doing.
He's representing
If you actually read through it, like Department of State, Department of Justice, like they're talking about like that's what they're trying to do is basically
These
support
on the right,
to be an instrument
provide support the right for it to be like an actual threat in any capacity. It looks like it's more bad for what was the machine violence is going to be, what it was, just way bigger issues.
And it's pretty much like stacked.
too wild. And I was
There's like some interesting stuff, but it's not like, oh, kill all liberals.
yeah, and it started off as a conservative thing. I think the biggest thing is that they want to consolidate most of the power underneath the president. And then they want to replace that.
They're basically just trying to extend down, like, you know, they choose their capital heads, they're basically creating just double the choosers where you want.
And that's basically like,
Exactly.
it's been twisted on its head by the media to become this thing that's like we just said, like,
I mean,
we don't want like LGBT sites and Democrats, like,
well, I mean,
but there are some crazy things in there, so that's why I'm kind well, I think like you're gonna the crazy thing is definitely something that they're gonna bring up. Probably what was it that you mentioned with media?
Gutting education will. It was that they wanted to replace education at really low levels of government.
Yeah, they wanted to replace like
Yeah, obviously, like it's saying they're never
We're
going
gonna
to
do that argument before about this, you know?
So it's like,
But like,
this.
yeah, well, I think we can definitely put that in because that makes them like, you know, they definitely have a an agenda that they want to put into education. They've put like their patriotic education, which sounds like legendarily like cultish.
I know. If you see him in Indiana,
He's a big guy, and he
has had in a public school.
I think it's gonna go.
Which provides like a First Amendment. But they haven't.
Yeah, some people like to pretend that this is just like a March 45 is much terminology, but you have seen a lot
Right
of
now, we're just trying to see if we
politicians
can
who are either
agree
Congress or
on
blah
why we
who have not only made reference to it, but actually shown support for it, and so there is a real threat at play.
And also, JD Vance wrote the foreword for Project 2025, and he's a PT pick.
And Trump himself keeps saying that he has no idea about it.
There is no connection.
Yeah, it's completely just like a maneuver to try to.
Okay, so I think.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're ready if you guys are.
Who we want?
Okay, I guess I'll win.
All right, you can go.
Try to pick someone new.
Okay, someone new. Who wants to do it?
Never mind, you can come again.
Okay, yeah, all right. I guess we're gonna go again. Who's going first?
So agreeers will go first and then disagreeers.
All right. So the primary argument that we see for it being the current largest threat to democracy is in the way Project 2025 seeks to consolidate the executive branch under the presidency. Now, to them, this is more democratic because the president's an elected official, but the way that it works here is that it's going to function less as a change of government and more as a regime change, because they want to go from, the president being able to just suggest changes to different executive agencies, that fall under the executive, instead of just suggesting things, putting things forward that has to be confirmed through other means through checks and balances. It would just be solely unitary decision of the president. So for the DOJ, for the State Department, for different organizations like that, if the DOJ wants to investigate the presidential administration for whatever reason, they could just be immediately stopped by the president himself. I mean, with the immunity clause that they've made for the presidency now, it would be basically impossible to put any kind of legal check on the power of the president, and it would allow the president to weaponize the DOJ if he so desired, which is exactly what the Trump administration is currently accusing the Biden administration of doing. So it ultimately leads to the situation of the full consolidation of political control under conservatives to the point where they could influence policy in a way to take away more democratic processes down the line. Maybe Project 2025 itself isn't enough to say that democracy is dying completely, but to put them in that position would mean that in the future they're better positioned to take away democratic processes.
I agree with all your points about how the things in it represent an issue for democracy if they were to be implemented. I just don't think it's going to be. I haven't seen any support from the rights, from the right main people, about that. Trump himself has them. He's like the main Republican guy. He's made it very clear that he's distancing himself from it. And even if they did try to implement a lot of policies, like replacing a lot of bureaucratic government workers with conservatives, that's insane. They couldn't do it. I just don't think it's certainly bad. I just don't think it's going to happen. Even if it did, there's bigger threats to democracy than that. And that's my argument.
All right. And then now it's just CrossRoads again. We can talk about it together. You can sit down if you want to, or you can stay standing.
I'm going to stay standing.
Yeah. We're already here. Might as well.
I mean, I guess the most immediate comment was we were discussing this within our own group, but you mentioned that there's no outward support, but that's demonstrably false. You have, we were just discussing, for example, I believe it was you brought up that JD Vance directly wrote the foreword for Project 2025, and so I mean,
And strangely, he became the VP. I don't know why that happened.
yeah, and so it's a bit,
Crazy.
it would be a bit disingenuous to say that there's no connection or that Trump has successfully distanced himself when he himself is hiring the person who wrote the forward to be the VP, and that's to speak nothing of the fact that there are a lot of other politicians, especially in Congress, who have shown outward support for Project 2025.
Also, the training videos for Project 2025 were leaked. A bit strange to make those if that was never going to happen. That was not even close to happening. And it's not like this is an unprecedented maneuver of an interest group, you know, basically teeing up the Republicans to do something. The Federalist Society has already successfully done this with the Supreme Court. They've already cultivated a nice collection of conservative judges. I mean, they basically wrote the lists for Trump to choose, like his Supreme Court picks from. So, like the Heritage Foundation writing what like the presidency executive branch is going to do, that's not really like out of the park here.
And then one last thing regarding the whether it presents a valid threat. You said that it seemed unrealistic, but I feel like that's out of the window given everything that has happened in the last roughly 10 years has shown that many things that we previously thought possible have a real precedent here. Before 2020, the idea of, for example, the Capitol riots, the insurrection would have been unthinkable. That we thought there would have been too many things in place, that level of violence would simply have not escalated to something like that. But it happened, it's a fact. And so in going forward, we need to take into account that we can't just discredit these threats because we believe that they can't come to pass.
Okay. I don't think that we're necessarily discrediting the threats. I think that at least the four of us on this side, we took the statement literally as is Project 2025, the single greatest threat to democracy in America today. And like for me, for example, I don't personally agree that it is itself the single greatest threat to democracy in the United States of America.
Then what
Point, period. Then what is? Well, that's what we're talking about now. What is the greatest threat to democracy in my opinion? I don't know. I mean, y'all are worried about Project 2025 consolidating all the power under the administration of the president, let's say the executive branch. But then, I mean, the exact criticism that people are making of Project 2025 is that this is what Republicans are claiming Democrats are doing in the first place. So it's almost like a pendulum at this point. Like
Well, the thing is,
stating. It doesn't matter if they're claiming or stating.
Well, I mean,
You see what I'm saying?
that's their opinion. You know, they're saying like, oh, they're already doing this, so like we're not doing anything bad.
Yeah, exactly. So I find it very ironic, and so it's almost like a pendulum swinging back and forth. It's
Wait,
like,
how is it a pendulum swinging back and forth if the Democrats aren't actually doing it and the Republicans are the ones actually
the Democrats aren't actually doing it? I wouldn't say the Democrats in specific. I don't think the Democratic Party is sitting there like at a chessboard saying like, hey, let's politically persecute Republicans. Like, no, I don't
That's not
think,
what's happening at all.
I don't think that's what's happening either. But to argue that the media and certain campaign strategists, political action committees aren't, which we learn in class, they do all the time, working together to spread some specific narrative to the public.
Okay, if we're gonna talk about like collaboration between the parties, I mean, like, I don't think like Fox News and like the Republican connection, right, is like nearly as like weak and tenuous as like the CNN Democrat connection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Fox News anchors were on January 6th texting high-level officials in the White House being like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And it's like that kind of direct connection. There's a lot more like solid direct connection, especially since Fox News was directly founded by a Republican strategist.
Yeah, well, Fox News is entertainment. A lot of our news sources in the United States of America are entertainment. But I think that this one is getting into our time for the next segment, and I know Tyler's excited, so I can't wait for the next one. If everybody wants to sit back down, we're going to start our next topic.
we're going to stand up together just a second.
Okay, the next topic is the conservative statement, and the conservative statement is the current presidential administration has had the worst performance out of any within the last 2 decades.
Disagrees over there, right?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
Oh, it looks like we found some
I'm just watching.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I guess let's just skip to the
You got some people that might be trying to sneak through.
Oh, if you're trying to sneak through, you can go ahead. All right, well, this one was a success. Let's go ahead and just have a conversation, guys. Let's just do it. Let's just skip the debate at this point.
I mean, yeah, it's
Who
just.
was the worst?
See, I feel like that's how these things have been going. It's like, well, if this isn't that, then what is? Which is interesting because I wasn't expecting that with these types of debates. But if we're gonna go down that route, we might as well. I don't think that necessarily the Biden-Harris administration themselves was the worst in the last 2 decades, because I just celebrated my 22nd birthday and I was not old enough to really truly feel the ramifications of, presidents leading up until I was about 16 years old, where I think that I started becoming conscious about experiences outside of my own and my own personal life. That's when I started to become, conscious that other people have feelings too. So, not to sound vain or anything, I was just saying that I think that I'm too young personally. I can do my research, and that's what I'm doing now by getting an education. But for me to say such a strong statement like, oh, this is the worst presidential administration in the last 2 decades, when there's certain things that previous administrations have done that I didn't agree with. So I literally had to go write a paper about it to try to figure out if it was.
Actually, let's see if we can find who the worst administration is, right?
Probably
So it's like Bush to Biden,
So we
right?
said-
So let's
we
just
said
raise our
two
hand. Raise your hands if you think Bush is the worst administration.
I think Bush was. A lot of people say he's smarter than we give him credit for. A lot of people say that George W. Bush is my dad. Not that I agree with that. He says that George W. Bush is a lot smarter than we give him credit for, especially the political majority unity of 9/11 and all Americans were united.
Well,
I'm
I'm not doing the classic 2000s liberal always a hick or whatever. I just think his reaction to 9/11 was horrible. The invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. That was a 20-year nightmare.
Well, okay, I think that.
Specifically, Iraq was the really bad one. That was the one that had
People
nothing.
said, why are we declaring war on Iraq? Because they do.
So,
Yeah, I know.
Oh wait, I want to rebut that part. So I think that the Bush presidency was worse for different reasons, right? 2008 financial crash. You have a lot of just general instability. Also, in the foreign affairs. I think wasn't it Bush that was. Well, of course, you had the wars that happened, but I think that the wars weren't really necessarily just the fact that Bush was in charge. It's just that, the wars themselves did have some merit to them. The Afghanistan war we went there for originally was to get rid of Al-Qaeda training.
Well, he specifically, first of all, the Taliban, right, was listen, we don't want to deal with this guy. We're going to send him to a neutral third party. We're not going to because, they are technically sovereign, right? They did control Afghanistan, right? And if they wanted legitimacy, they couldn't just be oh, we'll just do whatever you want, sir. You know what I mean? So they'll be hey, we will send him to Pakistan, right? And then you can work that out with them, right? And then George Bush infamously said, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And then we invaded their country for 20 years.
And additionally, we also had to get rid of the Al-Qaeda training camps in that country. It wasn't just Bin Laden we were after. It was after the whole infrastructure of terror that existed in Afghanistan, which was very real. There were hundreds of Al-Qaeda training camps.
Well, this is technically going a little further back than this issue predates Bush's administration. Our support, our support of those same Afghan terror groups that we technically basically helped set up.
Well, it was a bit different at the time. It was not the same conditions as they.
Well, yeah, they were shooting the Soviet Union first, so that's why we helped them.
Well, yeah, but also they didn't have that same level of.
Osama bin Laden was part of the Mujahideen.
Yeah, but he wasn't as radical as he became though. Even at the time, they did not. It wasn't as radical.
They were still Islamic fundamentalists.
Yeah, they were Islamic fundamentalists, but there were different flavors of that. Because you have people who.
There are. He's making a genuine point. I don't want to get into the nuances of it because it's not appropriate for this specific debate. But yeah, there is extensions to how much you practice any religion.
Yeah, but
Well,
the larger point, though, is that they had war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan.
Okay, what was the justification for the war in Iraq? We didn't get to that point yet.
Well, Saddam Hussein, the one that was infamously lied about was the WMDs, but even at the time, pretty much every government that like every Western government pretty much had like a suspicion that they still had a WMD program, even though there was no like really good evidence. It was still suspected.
Well, they were suspected because Colin Powell lied to the UN about
no, it was also because they wouldn't let a lot of inspectors in.
Well, yeah, because why would they let inspectors in? Because we never did find it, by the way, so they didn't have them.
Yeah, but the fact that they wouldn't let inspectors in.
Why would they just capitulate to like our random, like completely unfounded, unjustified, like based?
Because it would have prevented a war.
Well, I mean, a lot of other countries also didn't do that war. I mean, France and Germany were pretty, are pretty staunch allies. We're like, what are you doing?
Well, also France didn't help. Also, France put up the no-fly. France and Spain both put the no-fly zone when Libya bombed, helped to bomb other places in Europe for terror attacks.
Well, that's a little different than just like the made-up.
Well, my point is
Iraq. I didn't say they didn't help in Libya. I said they didn't help in Iraq.
Yeah, but that's my point is that they never really have been supportive of our policies, even whenever they were more justified.
So y'all are saying that administration's success rate is heavily correlated with their foreign affairs policies?
Well, that was probably the most defining
moment. He started a 20-year global war on terror, which I will give you credit for the fact that the goals he had were not as actionable as he was led to believe, or that not only was he led to believe, but he was part of the reason why the goals that they did have. Like about setting up a new Iraqi government and then making it like this presidential democracy like the United States. That was pretty much through him. Those ideas were spread that they need to be this way or like this way or bust. Okay. But it caused a lot of issues with trying to set up new governments in other places, like kind of presidential election and a formerly like a former dictatorship. Like it's kind of hard to do that. It'd be better to think maybe a parliamentary system, but he wouldn't see to those kind of reforms. He would just want to like this specific kind of way of remaking government. But additionally, it's just with the rise of ISIS, all these other issues that happened because of the failure of many different things happening in the Second Iraq War. It's on his administration, and that's what caused a lot of issues that happen even today in like Syria with like the ISIS and ISIL still there to this day. So.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, it's mostly just like we also can't forget that 2008 financial crisis. That's all 8 years of his administration leading up to that point.
Also, a huge budget deficit.
The bubble was starting to form back in 2006. People were already figuring out that there was going to be a crash around like 2006, 2007. So I mean, it was his administration that
all 8 years
that caused it.
Didn't identify it, didn't do anything to change it,
and
change or stop it.
And the U.S. bailed all the banks out. I mean, what's the point of the free market if we're going to bail out the monopolies that?
Yeah. Well, it's just a huge collapse of infrastructure for financial monetary things. I mean, if you had that happen, it would probably prolong the crisis even further.
Yeah. That's kind of what happened in the Great Depression, because we didn't bail anything out, just kind of let the free market do its thing. The Great Depression became a huge thing.
When you let the free market do its thing, it's just going to mess up poor people more, because people are going to be able to buy things in times of like crisis where companies are failing, are going to be like richer people, and it's just going to cause more issues.
Yeah.
If you don't bail, I mean, there are certain levels to that. There should be more prosecutions than what actually happened. There's only like one person who was formally persecuted for any of the wrongdoings that led up to that point of like fraud, of mislabeling loans as better than they actually were. Like all those like what is it? I think like CDOs. Like I can't remember what it was called, but there's some kind of synthetic CDOs they had. They would like try to rate it as a higher than it actually was supposed to be rated for, so people could take out more risks than they were actually rated for, and that was fraud. There was a lot of fraud involved in that, and only one person out of the entire crisis was actually formally prosecuted for that. If they had more formal prosecutions, all this other stuff, that would have been better, but I mean, the administration didn't really see it as very useful when they were still trying to handle this financial situation. That was more on their mind than trying to actually address the main perpetrators of that crisis.
Yeah, but they were also really not, especially like leading up to it. As you said, people were seeing like this is a thing that's gonna probably happen. We should probably do some things about it. And they just kind of like, let's go shoot some people in the Middle East.
Okay, that's a bit hyperbolic, but yeah.
A bit. It was just
Because that 2008, that was well into the.
To be fair, I mean, George Bush did very strangely choose the language of crusade for what we were doing there. So.
Well, I mean, there's always been pseudo-religious talk. I mean, like true.
Well, I mean, I think that's definitely part of the problem. I mean, if we're gonna treat it like that, if we're gonna treat it like some kind of East versus West dumb thing, right? If we're gonna treat it like that, that's definitely gonna frame it like a lot worse. We're gonna do a lot worse things over there.
Well, not whenever your military is mostly Christian. It kind of.
Why would you want to frame it as a crusade? The things that were just like Christians just going in and doing like a mass butchery, that would not be the ideal.
There are 10 separate. Man, I'm an atheist. I'm not a Christian, so I'm not trying to justify what that means. But there are 10 separate crusades. Not all of them were the exact.
Well, yeah, but everyone thinks of the bad ones. Like you don't say. Okay, yeah, let's get back to it. I think we're
getting a little off topic. Let's move on to the last segment under quality.
Okay, the last statement is the moderate statement, and that is, I do not think the 2024 presidential election is that important.
I think that's an extreme statement.
Is it?
It's extremely
moderate. Extremely moderate. Extremely simple. It doesn't actually matter, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Nothing ever happened.
Yeah, I was about to say like
Must have done a good job, right?
Well, yeah, the most important election in history, but it's definitely important.
I know.
One thing, all elections are important.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. The question is written in a particular way to where, this election is important. I'm for those of y'all that don't know, I'm Puerto Rican, so a lot of my family's born and raised on the island, and they can't even vote in the presidential election. So I take it very seriously, and I love talking about it because I don't want to make the wrong choice for my people type stuff. So I think every election is important at the end of the day. I think that I wrote this question, and I went to the disagree, but I would have agreed only for the fact that it's not just the presidential election that's important, and I used to think that was the case, but all elections are equally important, especially on the state and local levels, because they're really the people that have a say in what happened in the daily policies, regulations, rules of the road that happen around this area.
I agree with you there. Definitely, you put a lot of sort of inflated value on the sort of federal presidential elections when the state governments are really more impactful to us. I mean, the first thing I can think of was Georgia just recently, about a few months ago, just banned certain classifications of cars that are 25 years and older, which technically would have been annulled by the 25-year import law due to emissions and CAFE standards. But that directly affects us, the state, and was passed by the state. I agree with you there. Definitely, we see more impact on the state and local level than we do the actual federal level. At least in terms of media impact.
State governments are informing. This is why Republicans want to turn everything back to the states. You know what I mean? So that they can actually enact their policy on the state level, because they know that the states do have that. In the federal system, they do have that pretty profound amount of power still, even under the federal system. So if they can turn civil rights issues back to the states, then they can do their own thing.
Yeah, people look at how professionalized Congress is right now, but I was just learning recently that during the Constitutional Convention, these states, or these new states formerly revolutionized from Britain, had all established their own 13 state constitutions. They had to get together and agree on all of it. The Congress that we see today is truly influenced by the power of the individual states. You can see the federal system literally working in live action. So yeah, I'm glad that this is something that we can all agree on, that it's not just the president who runs the country. There's a whole lot of other not little guys, but important people behind the scenes that make a lot of things like this happen.
Yeah, there's plenty of things I've seen that's like, oh, this affects me directly, and that's the federal government didn't do anything about it. It was just, the state.
I mean, even if we're talking like local for Dahlonega at least, I know that there was a lot of planning that was put into some of the new infrastructure here, and that they're trying to expand, like, I don't know if you've seen like where they've been tearing up different roads here and stuff, but they're fixing some of like the sewage pipes and stuff so they can expand more, partly because the college is wanting more students, but the infrastructure can't handle more students, so that directly affects us.
And I think that's been a large part of trying to get mobilized voters, because for many years, I mean, though it's especially noticeable now, you've seen that people don't particularly care one way or another, or don't think too much about their position because they think of it as a very distant procedure. They think, oh, the presidential election, it's something they think of it more in the abstract sense instead of the examples that you guys have provided. When this is, or even aside from just the election itself, there's so many things adjacent to it that directly link to our everyday lives.
Well, I think one of the problems with our system is that it's very candidate centric. So like you can't just, it's like very hard to just know. Like if you were in the UK, right, and like I don't know if the UK is a unitary system, they don't necessarily have like locals, but I think Germany is probably a better example, right? But because Germany does have the federal system, and they have like they also have a party system, where you elect a party rather than like choosing a candidate. But I mean, they do front candidates, but you're voting for the party, like to control the parliaments and stuff. And if you have to like, see all these different names and all that, and like, people don't have. I mean, I mean, like it was like, wasn't it like the second most known person is like the vice president, and it's like 50%, right? And like people barely know who the vice president is, and that's like the second, like, well, I mean, like kind of theoretically most important person, but I mean, also, I mean, if we talk about how many people know like the name of the Speaker of the House, right, that's probably like abysmal. So, and they're like really procedurally important, and so I mean, people barely know the federal government, and that gets like 1 million like hours of news coverage, and like for state and local the stuff that doesn't really get as much like coverage and traction. I mean, sure, you'll get the local news, but the local news will like cover that, but also they'll still be covering the federal stuff as well. So it's like really hard to just know what like the state like politicians are actually doing, because like the information is so sparse and like people barely pay attention to politics as it is.
That's why it's a good thing that this fall we're writing another voter's guide for UNG students.
Yes.
All right. Anybody have any closing statements or remarks they'd like to make? Okay.
Well, by the way,
yes.
So I know it's kind of like not really comment or anything, but I just want to let you know, what do you guys know that the policy that free speech, well, obviously free speech on this campus is upheld due to the First Amendment Constitution and not having to do with cancel culture and all that, all the junk. So just freedom of thought, freedom of debate, freedom of everything.
Yeah, we all, I think, received an email last week from the Office of Student Engagement letting us know how free speech is practiced on the UNG campus. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I couldn't tell because you guys all did a great job today. You were respectful. It did get a little wild for a second, but we brought it back in. We dialed it down. I appreciate all of you coming. This is a special CrossRoad, so it won't be like this every time. Next week, it will be back to regular. Our theme is going to be conspiracy theories, and we will follow that up with Constitution Day the following week. Thank you guys for coming, and I will see you next week.
We should cut it up.
I'll just wait till I
make like a highlight reel.
Yeah, this is all going on my LinkedIn.
Oh, really?